The world had already ended. The waters had already fallen. The silence had already returned. And that's when the most mysterious chapter began. Not during the flood, but after it. According to the clay tablets of the Atrahasis Epic, preserved on a Sippar library fragment dating to around 1650 BCE, the cosmic crisis began with labor. In early Mesopotamian belief, the supreme gods lived on the sky plane of Anu, while a lower class of deities, the Igigi, dug the great canals and cleared the riverbeds. To relieve this physical strain, the gods created humanity to inherit the manual toil. But this solution soon created a new problem. Generations passed, and human beings multiplied. The tablets describe how the earth grew crowded, and a rising clamor began to echo up to the heavens. Scribes used the Akkadian term hubur, a word meaning literal noise, or the chaotic pressure of a swelling population. For Enlil, the chief counselor warrior of the gods, this constant din became a physical torment. The cuneiform records his exact complaint. The noise of mankind has become too much for me, because of their din sleep cannot overtake me. The ancient text frames human activity as a physical disturbance rather than a moral failing. The gods were not angry at human sin, they were simply tired. But why? Enlil, the chief counselor warrior of the pantheon, sought more than a temporary cure for his sleeplessness. His irritation hardened into a cold, systematic demand for absolute quiet. The gods viewed the rising clamor of humanity as a direct threat to cosmic order. According to the surviving Akkadian texts, Enlil first tried to silence the world through localized misery. He commanded plagues to sweep the cities, ordered droughts to wither the crops, and sent famines to starve the populations. Each time, human numbers faltered, only to recover and multiply once more, bringing back the intolerable noise. With each failure, Enlil's resolve intensified. The persistent survival of the human race became the ultimate grievance. Within the divine assembly, Enlil assumed absolute authority, demanding the complete erasure of humankind. He demanded a permanent punishment, one that would leave no survivors and no echoes. The gods gathered, bound by an oath of absolute secrecy. This time the sentence would be total. But one god chose covert resistance over open defiance. Ea, the deity of wisdom, had sworn the oath of secrecy with the assembly. Yet he designed a loophole to bypass it. He would not speak directly to a human. Instead, he addressed a wall of woven reeds and clay. On the other side of that wall lived Atrahasis, a mortal king of Shuruppak, chosen to receive this forbidden knowledge. The warning was a whisper. The message was delivered in the dead of night, leaving Atrahasis to listen to the rustling fibers of his own home. As translated by scholars W. G. Lambert and A. R. Millard, the cuneiform preserves Ea speaking directly to the architecture. O fence of reed, O wall of brick, hear this, O fence, pay heed, O wall. O man of Shuruppak, demolish the house and build a boat. By speaking to the wall rather than the man, Ea technically kept his oath of secrecy while ensuring human survival. In the Akkadian texts, this scene acts as a critical literary device. The reed wall serves as a liminal space, a physical barrier turned into a divine medium. Ea could later claim he never told a mortal, he only told the reeds. But why? Why would a god commit high treason against his own assembly? Because he needed a mortal to act, and act quickly. The instructions whispered through the reed wall were not a grand prophecy. They were a highly specific, desperate set of instructions for survival. According to the clay tablets, the command was brutal in its simplicity. Demolish the house and build a boat. Atrahasis had to tear down his own home to use its timber and reeds as building materials. The standard Babylonian tablet of Gilgamesh reveals an even stranger design. The vessel's length and breadth had to be completely equal, covered with a roof like the ocean below. In some cuneiform fragments, this vessel is described as a massive circular coracle made of tightly bound reed bundles, sealed inside and out with boiling bitumen, and reinforced by a heavy wooden frame. Under the silent gaze of a doomed city, the survivor had to gather his household, his family, and a master builder to seal the hatch. Next came the cargo of life itself, the seed corn of the earth, livestock, birds and animals of every kind. The tablets describe this mobilization as a frantic race against an invisible clock. Every reed bound and every layer of tar applied was a silent defiance of the Supreme Council. But the tablets become even stranger. According to Tablet 11 of the Epic of Gilgamesh, translated by scholar Andrew George, the sky itself fractured. A black cloud rose from the horizon. The thunder god Adad rumbled inside it, and a terrifying darkness turned light into shadow. For 6 days and 7 nights, the tempest raged. The vessel was tossed like a leaf on the river. George's translation of the standard Babylonian version preserves the sheer terror of this onslaught. A storm rose, the wind howled, the waters swelled, and the heavens were darkened. The flood rushed over the land, the deep was opened, the great river overflowed, and the world was covered with water. All the houses were shattered, the fields were ruined, and the dead lay in the water. The destruction was total. The ancient scribes wrote that the waters drowned the mountains, turning the earth into an empty, trackless ocean. Even the gods recoiled from what they had done. The cuneiform describes them cowering like dogs, crouching by the outer wall of heaven. And then, on the 7th day, the storm stopped. The wind fell silent. The sea grew perfectly flat, like a clay roof. All of humanity had returned to clay. The survivor, looking out from his small hatch, was surrounded by nothing but water and a heavy, chilling silence. But why? Why had the gods chosen such complete, unyielding destruction? According to the tablets, the physical destruction was complete, but the silence inside the vessel was heavy with anticipation. The survivor had to find out if anything else on Earth had endured. To test the dead world, he released a dove. It flew into the empty grey sky and returned, finding no place to rest. He waited. Next, he released a swallow. It too returned to the pitching hull. Finally, he sent forth a raven. The raven did not return. Dry land was near. The receding waters slowly revealed a world stripped of life. The raging tempest was replaced by an uneasy, absolute stillness. The cuneiform describes a quiet world where the wind no longer howled. Inside the vessel, the family realized they had survived. They had endured the total extinction decreed by the divine council. But their survival was not a victory. It was a secret. And the supreme god Enlil had no idea they were still breathing. What happened next shocked even the gods. According to the surviving clay tablets, the first action of the survivor upon stepping onto dry land was not to celebrate, but to build an altar. On the silent peak of Mount Nisir, he offered a sacrifice of sheep, oxen, and fragrant wood, lighting a fire that sent a column of sweet smoke into the empty sky. What happened next exposes the strange, fragile reality of the Mesopotamian gods. For 6 days, the heavens had been empty of human worship. The temples of Shuruppak, Uruk, and Nippur lay buried under thick mud, their altars washed away. In ancient Mesopotamian belief, the gods did not merely desire sacrifices, they physically depended on them. Without humans to cultivate the fields and present food, the deities had spent the week of the deluge suffering from starvation and thirst, huddled in the cold outer corners of heaven. The smell of burning meat on the mountain wind changed everything. According to Tablet 11 of the Epic of Gilgamesh, the response was immediate and desperate. The ancient text describes the gods smelling the sweet vapor and gathering like flies over the hot coals. It is a striking, visceral image of divine vulnerability. The supreme rulers of the universe, who had just brought down a global catastrophe to silence humanity, were now reduced to helpless scavengers, drawn to the hearth of the very mortal they had tried to destroy. But the tablets become even stranger. This unexpected gathering was not a gathering of triumph, but of sheer hunger. The extinction of mankind had nearly destroyed the gods themselves. This desperate scene of starving deities is not a modern dramatic invention. It survives because ancient scribes pressed wedge-shaped cuneiform script into wet clay tablets thousands of years ago. Excavated from buried cities across Mesopotamia, these fragile clay records now reside in climate-controlled museum vaults. The primary documents containing the Atrahasis Epic and the Gilgamesh flood narrative are preserved in the British Museum in London. Other critical fragments belong to the collections of the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford. Under laboratory lights, the ancient incisions reveal a bitter divine conflict that was far from over. Because on that mountain peak, as the sweet smoke drifted upward, the king of the gods at last realized he had been disobeyed. According to the tablets, Enlil's fury was immediate. He looked upon the boat resting on the slopes of Mount Nisir and realized his decree of absolute erasure had failed. His reaction was not relief that life had survived, but cold anger. This is the moment where the standard Babylonian tablets, compiled centuries after the original Atrahasis Epic, introduce a new name for the survivor, Uta-Anapishtim, and a new name for his protector, Ea. In Tablet 11 of the Epic of Gilgamesh, translated by scholar Andrew George, Enlil confronts the divine assembly, demanding to know how his plans were sabotaged. He points directly at the water god. "Why have you aided this man, Ea? You have given him a boat and a life, contrary to the council's decree." But why? Why would Ea risk the wrath of the supreme commander? The tablets describe a fierce dispute. Ea does not deny his actions. Instead, he mounts a defense that challenges the justice of the flood. He argues that total destruction was an excessive punishment. In George's translation, Ea tells Enlil that a sinner should bear their own sin, and a transgressor their own transgression. He argues that instead of a global deluge, Enlil should have sent wild animals or famine to keep human numbers in check. The tablets become even stranger. Ea's defense exposes the ultimate vulnerability of the gods. He reminds Enlil of the starvation they suffered during the storm. Without humans to feed them through sacrifices, the gods cannot survive. By saving Utnapishtim, Ea had not just saved humanity, he had saved the gods from their own self-inflicted ruin. According to the surviving tablets of the Epic of Gilgamesh, Enlil resolved the divine dispute by transforming the survivor's nature. This man, known as Atrahasis, meaning exceedingly wise in the older Old Babylonian tablets, is recorded under a different name in the later Standard Babylonian version, Utnapishtim, he who found life. But this divine settlement did not apply to all of humanity. It was an exception reserved for only 2 people. The ancient texts describe how Enlil stepped onto the vessel, took Utnapishtim by the hand, and made him kneel. He then touched the forehead of Utnapishtim's wife, standing beside him. The tablets become even stranger. Instead of leaving them to face the standard human fate, Enlil blessed the pair. According to Tablet 11, translated by scholar Andrew George, Enlil declared that Utnapishtim and his wife would become like gods. They received eternal life, relocated to live forever at the mouth of the rivers. This grant of immortality functioned as a highly specific, non-repeatable settlement. The gods designed this cosmic exile to ensure that the only survivors of the Great Flood would never die, yet would never trouble the divine council on Earth again. According to the surviving tablets of the Atrahasis Epic, the continuation of human life on Earth came with a permanent, sobering price. To ensure that the human population would never again grow loud enough to disturb the sleep of the gods, the Divine Council instituted strict biological and social limits on future generations. The cuneiform outlines these new cosmic regulations: the creation of sterile women who cannot conceive, a devastating decree that 1/3 of all infants die at birth, and the establishment of celibate priestesses forbidden from bearing children. Death and barrenness became divine tools of population control. The tablets become even stranger when we compare these ancient accounts. These specific demographic restrictions are detailed in the Old Babylonian Atrahasis tablets, which date to around 1650 BCE. Yet in the later Standard Babylonian Epic of Gilgamesh, these population controls are absent. Historians observe the striking verbal parallels between these texts, including the precise bird release sequence and the dimensions of the vessel, to suggest a direct literary connection. Many scholars argue that the writers of Gilgamesh directly adapted the older Atrahasis material. However, because cuneiform records are fragmentary and separated by centuries, establishing an exact, unbroken route of transmission requires caution. What the surviving clay does confirm is a shared, lasting attempt to explain why humanity survived an extinction that was meant to be total. Today, these cracked clay tablets remind us of a sobering truth. Humanity's survival has never been guaranteed. We exist on a fragile, borrowed grace. The ancient scribes captured a fear we still carry, that our presence here is remarkably delicate, preserved only by a whisper of chance. We are still living in the aftermath of that compromise. Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more deep history.